Hey, good morning. It's good to see you today. We're doing a recap of last Wednesday's Revelation study, part 3 of the Church of Thyatira. The final. We did make it through. We survived. This is Tom Burns with Redeemed Idiot. My name is Philip Thomas, pastor of Journey here in Elgin, Texas. And of course, our normal series is on Wednesdays at 6:30. We'd love for you to come and join us here in person. You can also watch us on Redeemed Idiot, YouTube, Facebook. We have an app that we're putting everything in. It's the Journey Elgin Church app. So you can actually download it. You can listen to it audio-wise or video. So
it's a great app.
It really, it's working good, I think.
One-touch shop or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. Now, I can't vouch for the quality of all of it. It is us up here talking, but so let's get into the end of Revelation chapter 2. And you did start clarifying, I would say, because last week we talked about how it really, the reason it was so quote negative towards the Catholic Church is that we were mainly focused on the condemnation, right?
The rebuke that was happening.
The rebuke. I think you did a good job of really explaining, listen, this is not just saying that all Catholics, you're out of luck, right?
Right.
So any other thoughts on that? Because now we're getting more to moving forward past that.
No, you're right. I think when I went back and rewatched, I'm like, oh man, this is dark. I just sound like I just said all Catholics are going to hell, basically. Like, that's not the message, because we were in the rebuke. That was the context. It's the dark part.
Yes.
But it was talking about specific of what would be the Catholics going, but it's not all Catholics. And that's where this week kind of like brought the light out. Like, this is how you don't end up in this bad spot.
Yes. Yeah. It's so important for us, because one of the themes, and I'm assuming it's going to be a theme in the other churches too, is idolatry, right? It is taking our focus away from the worship of the one true God, right? And all churches have their areas that they can easily get off into idolatry.
Right.
The Catholic Church is in some ways is more obvious because they're very structured, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the other churches coming into idolatry. Yes, that's absolutely true. But there's another little kind of a twist to it. It isn't always, because this is where we see in the first church of Ephesus, a major thing was going into idolatry, he was talking about, but the things that I was talking about within the false teachings.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see that still come up some more. So if we're not teaching it right, who Christ truly, really is, then even though you may not be in the order of idolatry, worshiping some other fictitious or whatever God, that you're not actually seeing who God truly is. Is your heart really true for who he is and truly understand him? And that's kind of an important, when we get into the next church, that'll make a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
But it is the idolatry and the false teaching type thing. They kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Because both of them are kind of like, you're not focused on what you need to focus on.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. Now, so I was just going to kind of start getting into this, but was there anything else, any other specific idea or thought that you felt need clarifying?
Yeah, I do want to say one thing, only because it has to, because this is more tied to into the rebuke side to it, and we'll talk about it. But the point is, like, when we talked about Psalms,
mm-hmm.
Psalms 2, we kind of went through that whole thing. One thing I didn't state, because we were just running out of time, just just diarrhea of the mouth, was within that, you have the Catholic Church that basically claims they understand the Bible entirely. But here's this psalm here, and if you understand its context to when and who it's talking about, how come you didn't recognize this as being a practice not to do even before you ever even did it, and then adopted that exact same practice from what was happening with the pagan beliefs and the pontiffs and everything? It's really Christ in a prophetic sense going, or God, if you want to say that, because back then Christ wasn't known per se.
Yeah.
God stating this is what's going to happen, but it mirrored Psalm 2 to Thyatira.
Yes.
So if you know everything about the Bible, why did you not recognize this long before you became this church and go, hold on, before we start these practices, we've already been warned that this is a problem. And that's kind of a point I wanted to bring up, and I didn't.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. But see, to me, this just makes sense. This is part of the spiritual battle nature of things, but it's also human nature. So, you go back to this time period. So we're looking at the 350s to 380s, right? Mm-hmm. Whenever, and so they're looking for this they're already starting to merge and to become an official religion.
Right.
And so now it's like, okay, well, now we have to become an institution, right? How do we do this? What's the structure we need to take on? And the reality is the Bible doesn't give a specific structure for the local church. Right. I know some people's mind will be blown by that.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. That's why there's so many different ones, right?
Right.
Because nearly everyone will say, well, we're basing this on scripture. And most of them are partially, right? But like some will have elders, some won't have elders. Well, which one is right? Well, there's elders in the Bible, and then I guarantee there were groups where they didn't have elders, right? They had deacons, right?
Yeah. Man, you're going down another deep.
I know, so I don't want to
get into.
But but
I love this conversation already.
We could go, but we at that point, it's starting to become influential. Mm-hmm. It's making the transition where now it's not this fringe religion. It's not persecuted. Now it's been recognized, and in fact, it can't be persecuted. So now it's really starting to gain popularity. And it's like, okay, man, now what do we need to do? We need to make sure we keep this going. We see this today. Look at what churches do. Whenever you start growing, you start to say, oh, but what do we have to do? Well, we have to get a larger building. Well, that's good. Well, now we have to hire someone to help manage our finances so that we can afford that building. Then we're doing good work. We want to ensure that we can continue growing. So we need to hire another person to create this kind of ministry to continue our outreach, right? None of these are bad in of themselves.
No.
Right? And that's why I'm trying to bring this all the way back. They started saying, well, what's a good structure of how we can do this? And they have some subversiveness that comes in and says, hey, here's kind of a good structure here. And at that time, they would have acknowledged, yeah, but that's pagan stuff. Well, but take the pagan God stuff out of it. The structure and format and ritual of it, it's been effective. Look how it's been effective. People are used to this. Mm-hmm. So now you just tweak it a little bit to fit pointing people to God, right? But it's actually a pagan practices, and it opened the door to idolatry. It right there from the beginning. So it doesn't have to be false motives that the people had back then. They may have been doing what they thought was right, and now we're just at this point to where, well, that's just the way it's always been.
Right. But you're right. And I think the key word you said here is practices. Mm-hmm. So even if you just did the Nicolaitan part of it, the thing that just the structure of the church, that's one thing, even though that's talked out against, because you're not over anybody, you're a disciple. But then you break it in, they adopted their exact same practices. It's that worshiping of other gods, whatever, that no matter how you slice it, that is wrong.
It leads to idolatry.
If you want to keep the Nicolaitan thing like a Pharisee, fine, but cut the rest of this garbage out and worship the only one true God and understand He is the only Christ. He is the only intercessor. He's the one that you go to, period, end of story.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You are correct. I just say I understand how that happens, right? I just with
those Babylonian priests coming into it already set the structure's already set before they got named the Catholic Church.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And so I also understand how 2,000 years of history later, that many people are blinded to it.
You did mention the human side to it. That's where you okay. Yeah. I want to get my head in the right place.
Yeah. No, because we're on this.
All makes sense.
On completely. Yes, I see how it happens. Because again, we are in a spiritual battle all the time, whether you like it or not. That makes a lot of people uncomfortable. That would have made my Christian pastor self 10 years ago uncomfortable to just say, yeah, of course we're in a spiritual battle, right? I'd be like, well, let's talk about what does that really mean? No,
Right.
Satan is trying to deceive, to destroy, to take down God's creation and the part of God's creation that he loves the most, which is us. And he's constantly going to find ways to do that. And man, if you can attack the foundations of a church,
you're winning.
You're
winning. Yeah. And you're right. The spiritual battle. And to your point, a lot of people don't want to see that. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
It's like, that's kind of a scary thing. That's chaotic. It's, and that again, that's a human nature thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Not wanting to see it. I mean, that's a personality thing. I think I'm going to say, I'm only pointing myself where I'm a little different in this. I thrive more in chaos than I do when things are kind of smooth. Like when things are smooth, I'm like, okay, I got to make something happen. Not necessarily bad, but I have to have something active. When you give me chaos, I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why I do it in the military. Like it's utter chaos. Like, let's go have some chaotic times. So maybe that's why I'm more like you are more attuned to it.
Yes.
You're seeing it because you're not afraid of it. It's like, it's there. Let's attack it.
Now let's figure it out. Yeah. Okay. So I think all that was meaningful conversation.
Well, we don't script this.
We don't script. So, we really started at verse 24, chapter 2. But to the rest of you in Thyatira. So now he's saying, hey, you can wake up to this, right? You don't have to go down this and be seduced by Jezebel. You don't have to. Who do not hold this teaching, which the teaching is the idolatry, is essentially
right. Just what Jezebel had done with her husband to get him in idolatry, and he was the one that actually went to the Israelites and said, "This is the way we're going to worship God now," or Baal, and caused them to sin, and which was very bad.
Yeah. So who have not learned what some call the deep things of Satan, which that's kind of it, right?
Yeah.
It's Satan wanting to deceive us. Those are the deep things of Satan.
Yeah.
I do not lay on you any other burden. Isn't that interesting? Because it's actually saying that trying to recognize this idolatry and push back against it is burden enough, right?
Exactly.
So this is not easy to deal with for us.
Right.
So, we do need to recognize how subversive this is.
No, very much. And since the predecessor to what this was talking about, those are going to have this other burden, which is going to be caught up. It's just bad.
Yes.
And essentially most are going to experience a second death. That's where the separation of Christ. And we're not going to go into that right now, but he's not going to give him any other burden.
Yeah.
You refrain from this, and it goes on more, but I've got life for you.
Yes.
It's all good.
Yeah.
And this is where the light side, the good side comes up. Like, not everybody is going to experience the darkness.
Right. That's exactly right. And that is so important just with the whole theme of Revelation. There's a lot of darkness there, but the constant thread underneath is the victory and the overcoming and the life that Christ brings.
Right.
That is available to all of us. Right.
Right.
And so that Revelation is actually a victorious book. It's not.
It is.
It's not a scary book. It just acknowledges the reality of the battle.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a fear of the Lord. Like, okay, he will do all this. However, he's giving me a path to go not deal with this.
That's right. So it says, only hold fast to that that you have until I come. So again, that's a future thing.
Yeah.
The one who conquers and keeps my works until the end, to him I will give authority over the nations. So who is he talking about here?
In terms of
to the one who conquers and keeps our works until the end. So he's talking about what the works here. I want to hit the works first. So keeps the works until the end. What works is he talking about? So
if it actually says keeps my works.
Yes.
And before in verse 23, it talks about they're going to be talking more about the churches that are left behind as well. I'm going to cast you. You're going to have problems because of your works. So there is a differentiation between what you think works are and what my works are.
Yeah.
Now, and the works is the practice, the things you're doing that are not basically about me, but works in the literal sense and how it translates is actually something physically we do.
Yeah.
It is the employment. It's the task we are given. And I'd say anybody watching this, go watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
This goes in very much a lot of depth, but it boils down to our
fulfilling the Great Commission.
The commission. The commission. That's the work. That's what he called us. Go and do this. That's your employment.
Yeah.
Go disciple. All right. And that's his works. That's where fruits come from.
Yeah.
If we're not doing his work, and which is the point of going out and the commission of going out and discipling, you wrap this up and understand, well, then what am I discipling? Well, you can look at the 10 commandments. What he's saying and the fourth commandment is, remember everything that I've done. So there you go. Everything he has done, going to do, is wrapped up in the book. So if you see it from that perspective, this is where you can share to people, disciple them. Here's everything that he has done, all the things that he has saved, all the good things from the dark. And if that makes sense, it's like, talk about him, focus on him, so people can see that Christ is not this thing of hate, or God's not of hate. He's surely of love. I want to rescue you. Yeah. That's all you got to do. But we fail in that world. We think a bumper sticker's enough and just walk into church. But we are told, go out and do this to the entire world.
Yes. And
that's his works.
And that's right. And it is more than just feeding the hungry. Right. Those
are demonstrations of love.
Those are great things. Right. But part of what the main focus of the church is making disciples.
Yeah.
Right. And then from that flows the other things that we do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the one who conquers, who keeps my works until the end, to him I will give authority over the nations. So this is kind of looking to the future, right? Where there will be authority that we have in this physical world. After, kind of in would it be in the millennium? I mean, we're jumping forward, so we're not going to get into that.
It is millennial speaking, even beyond that.
Right.
But that's why we had what I called my foot stomp moment.
Yes.
Because we're not doing any depth understanding of this. The only reason I brought this up, because most people have this perception, this picture in their head, that we're in heaven for eternity and we're going to play harps on clouds and
we're disembodied spirits, and we have a little halo.
And we have a little halo.
And we get to sit on a cloud and recline.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not what happens?
No, I'm sorry, man. I'm glad, because I like to skydive. Whatever kind of sucks. Like I can't fall.
I used to think that you could sit on a cloud until I flew, and my mom told me, yeah, that's a cloud right there. I'm like, ooh, that's not going to work well. Right? My idea of heaven was shot.
Right. But since
there's a physical aspect to heaven, obviously.
Yes, there's a reason we will go to heaven, and we'll get more into that. I'll say this: there's a preparation going on.
Yeah.
But heaven isn't where we spend eternity. Mm-hmm. Not even close. We will actually be ruling with him.
The new heaven and the new earth.
Ruling there as well.
Right. And
I don't want to go too much.
I don't either. But
it's going to blow people up.
Where is heaven?
Huh?
Where is heaven? It's where God dwells, right? Mm-hmm. Essentially. So when God is dwelling here on earth, which at the end of Revelation, it specifically says God's throne is now here, right? Well, then heaven and earth, right? It's all mixed.
It's his yeah. Well, that's
yeah.
That's we'll definitely get into all that. But the point is, the reason why I brought this up to understand why you'll be giving an authority, and this goes back to Psalm 2, because Christ is talking about his king that's going to set himself in Jerusalem. It says Mount Zion, which is actually Jerusalem from David. Mm-hmm. We're not going to go depth on this, but that he was given authority over the nations, and we know that he will be the ruler of the kings of the earth when he returns, puts his feet on the Mount of Olives, and starts. I'm here, Satan. You're no longer in charge. I got this.
Yeah.
But as we come with him, we are going to be set to be rulers of the nation with him.
Yeah.
He's our boss, obviously, mm-hmm. but and it really actually says to shepherd, because a lot of people think the concept is when Christ comes, all the good Christians are going to be left alone. We're all going to be in heaven, and then all the bad peoples and the evils and all this and globally are going to be dead. No, that's actually not the truth.
Yeah.
This world is still going to be intact. It's going to have gone through a lot of hell per se, but evil or bad people or people that do not believe are still going to exist.
Yeah.
And our job is still another chance to get it right. And we're going to be used to be those shepherds to bring those people to Christ before what's called the great white throne judgment occurs. And then it's like, time out. It's over. But so we are going to get to be with him. We're going to get to be ruling or shepherding with him here back on the earth and without a fear of death, obviously. Then that's the beauty of it. It's like, we're not just going to hang out in heaven. You're actually going to have a job.
Of course.
And that job is going to be based on your works that you've done here. You've already got salvation. But what's going to be your authority? Well, prove to Christ that you can be an authority and you are a good shepherd. Best way to say it.
No, I mean, there's reasons that we see the phrases King of Kings, Lord of Lords. That's not just poetic language.
No.
That is literal. He is going to be the literal King of Kings, right? Lord of Lords. So,
yes.
Let's see. It keeps going. He will rule them with a rod of iron. That kind of gets to the shepherd, right?
That's the shepherd.
That's the shepherd. As when earthen pots are broken in pieces, even as I myself have received authority from my Father. So that's Jesus talking about the authority he's received, right?
Yep.
Because he is God.
That was prophesied back in Psalm 2, if you go look at it.
Yes. And that, is it in Psalm 2 that talks about the broken?
Yeah, it talks about the exact same thing, that you are going to be, you're going to have a rod of iron and about the broken pots, because you're going to be part of the destruction of the nations. And this isn't, it's the destruction of the nations, the people, that when this war, when Christ comes back, we're going to be engaged in.
Yeah.
And the reason why it uses a rod of iron, and like I said, I can't find any place biblically it actually uses the term rod of iron, referencing specifically to what a shepherd carried. But historically, shepherds carried their, what is it called? The
shepherd
staff.
Crook.
The shepherd crook, the big thing on it, grab them by the neck and rip them back like, hey, stupid. Get
or
over
you
here.
take people off the stage, right?
Oh, there's that one too, But they also carried a rod of iron. And this was to combat and beat back the things that wanted to attack the sheep, the evil things, the bad things.
The wolves.
The wolves, And that's why they carried it, because that staff would not keep them away, and they didn't have a bunch of Great Pyrenees running around and all these cool things.
Yeah.
It was on them. So they were there with this rod of iron as well to beat these things back.
Yes. That's one of the goals of the jobs of the shepherd.
Right, exactly.
I love, there's, the pictures of Jesus carrying like a lamb and stuff like that. And that's part of who Jesus is.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Revelation, the lamb is down, and Jesus is now picked up the rod. and he's swinging it around.
Right.
So,
exactly.
And then it says, and I will give him the morning star. Okay. You just quickly, we won't have to go in depth.
Right.
But you have heard this taught where this is bringing a confusion and saying, because clearly, and I will give him the morning star, he's talking about Satan. He's talking about...
No, he's talking about Christ right here.
Yes,
you're going to get Christ. You're going to get the light.
And I will give him the morning star. But that Satan is also referred to in a similar way, right?
Very similar. And I only went into this because I say false teaching, but it's because it hasn't been the due diligence going back. Why does it say Christ is the morning star, but it also calls Satan the morning star? Many people will teach from this, the concept of morning star, this is actually, again, talking about Satan or Lucifer. And it's not. And they get that from Isaiah 14 when it talks about Lucifer. Some say the morning star, the dawn of the morning. Different ways it's phrased, but it's talking about Lucifer in the fall from where his grace, when he was up with God. But that's beside the point. But when you break it down, because the word shakar is in there, and I'm not wondering but really what that translates down to, when you do an etymology to it, and from a root word that doesn't even use anymore, it actually means black. And through the etymology, it was talking about just before dawn, when the night is its darkest. So when it's speaking of Lucifer in 14:2, he's talking about the darkness, not the light that's the morning star of Christ. And that's why some transliterations won't even put the word Lucifer in that, because it's confusing. It's like, this actually sounds like the same person. But we have to, this is the etymology. We'll find the word. This is actually talking about something dark. Morning star in Revelation talking about something light, the opposition.
Exactly.
Did I make that clear?
No, and I of course I love that analogy that it's darkest before the dawn, and of course the one who taught us that was Batman in The Dark Knight, right? You need to watch The Dark Knight Rises. It's a great movie. But Harvey Dent, before he goes crazy, spoiler alert, that he says the night is darkest before the dawn, right? And that is kind of the general idea.
Yeah, they didn't get from the Bible, but that's the truth,
right? It is the truth. Yeah,
and that's why even militarily, a lot of times, even back in the times of Indians, that's when you struck. It was just before dawn.
Was it right? And people were still at their deepest sleep because it's dark, right?
Yeah.
They're finishing up their REM sleep, right? Yeah. It's like there's some connection with everything.
No,
it's like we had someone who created all of this with purpose and meaning,
right?
And we don't.
Yeah, I don't think that believes.
So, and then of course it ends. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches.
Right.
So again, just going back, saying, listen, you as an individual, right? You can pay attention to this stuff.
Right.
You can hear this. Is that?
Yeah, exactly. And two things on this. One, I mentioned, and I hadn't said it before, and I keep forgetting, but if you notice, it's pluralized. Mm-hmm. Every one of the churches
says to the churches. Yeah.
And that is because when this was written, it wasn't 7 separate letters to the churches. It was one single scroll that they could all read and teach about every church and how it applies to them. You may have bits of this one and bits of this one, good or bad.
Oh, yeah.
But it applies to all churches. If you're any part of this, there's a problem.
Yeah.
So that's where that comes from. And the other side to that is that the individual side, yes. And people, and I said this, why then, if you understood this and you're Catholic, why would you want to stay in the Catholic Church? Well, if you notice, it doesn't tell him to escape, to run from, to leave the Catholic Church. He's not. One, if you think about the humanity behind it, the things that the Catholic Church does in its works, the churches, the education, the things for old people, the food, everything. Man, if you're in that church and that's your passion and you're doing these things, well, if you leave and denounce the church, you're no longer part of this. So people by personality will want to still do these works. These are good works. But what he's saying is do not get caught up in this Nicolaitan type thinking. Do not practice these things. And the idolatry. Essentially, they have the Eucharist. If you want to participate, okay, it's not what people say that's around you. It's what's in your heart.
Yes.
So because you got parents and you don't realize a lot of times in Catholic, if you denounce Catholicism, you get kicked out of the family. You're hated.
Yeah.
But okay, I will still put on the show. Am I saying it's right or wrong? I'm not here to say whether it's right or wrong. But if you want to go to the Eucharist, but in your head, your heart, your understanding, this is just symbolic that
you're not crucifying Christ again
I'm not,
every time.
Exactly. I'm not eating him.
Yeah.
Nor am I re-crucifying him. I'm remembering what he did. And you don't have to talk to and pray to or venerate or honor whatever all the dead saints. You don't have to do that. You don't have to go into.
You can pray to Christ.
You can. Oh yeah, there's an idea. Yeah. You do not have to go to the confessional and have the priest help you confess your sins to whatever to God and have some rosary beads and say some Hail Marys and all this stuff. You don't have to do that. If you did not go into that confessional, the church does not kick you out.
Right.
But you just take it. I'm praying to Christ. Yes. Period. So you can be active within a church and be doing all the good works.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong, when they teach, they're still telling some good things.
Oh, yeah.
Some righteous things, some right things, and how to live, how to be a good person and who Christ is. They're not extracting that completely. There's a contradiction, but you can still learn. Mm-hmm. And from that, you can still be part of it. And maybe you're humble. Like, I don't want to leave. I want to keep doing this. I want my parents to hate me, or my husband, or my kids. But you don't have to engage in practice. That's all it's saying.
Yeah.
Do not do these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're good.
Yeah.
And you still get Christ. And this is why it says, and to the rest of you in Thyatira who do not do these things, the rest of you who are in the Catholic Church but don't participate, I got something good for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
It is. It's beautiful, isn't it? And it is that message of hope. It's that message of new life. Mm-hmm. It's that message of victory that Christ desires for all of us.
Yes.
Right. So, all right. Well, we're going to stop there. I have no idea how long we've been going because I did not hit a timer. Oh. So, but I think we're about about at our 30-minute
Sure.
time. We'll find out here in just a minute.
Right.
So, but again, thank you so much for joining us. Wednesday nights at 6:30, we'll start chapter 3, but I know it's kind of a transition.
There's a transition
into the next church,
into a just kind of a quasi introduction to it, but for purpose, because once we jump into chapter 3, there are some things that are said, and this is going to bring a lot of clarity to why Christ is saying what he's saying. So it's going to be a really interesting, big thing we're going to talk about this Wednesday.
Yeah. So all the others, subpar. This one's going to be really good.
Don't. They're just added my anxiety stress level.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Great.